Hello again, welcome to my channel. My name is Jeremy Lee. Every week I'm going to make a new videos about history topics. And if you are students in school or you're just like interested about history, then this channel is for you. Today we're going to talk about Marco Polo, but no, got nothing to do with the swimming pool games. We're going to talk about, yes, the Polo, the Marco Polo. I will start the story with this one. During a captivity, a Venetian merchant by the name of Marco Polo shared his journey to China to someone by the name of Rustichello. Apparently, if you are in a prison and then you do not have any kind of TV or any kind of like other form of entertainment, the best source of information that you can get is sharing stories and listening to the stories. Rustichello, he listened to the amazing story of Marco Polo's journey to China. To Rustichello, most of the story that shared by Marco Polo, it's unbelievable. He described a lot of things that many Europeans never heard before. Now, of course, Rustichello is an author, and then he wrote all of the story that he heard from Marco Polo into a book. And later on, after both of them, they get out from the jail, they get out from the prison, they get out from the captivity. Rustichello wrote a book about the adventures of Marco Polo, and it became a bestseller during those time. It was become like the most popular book simply because the adventure story of Marco Polo seems to be like a fantasy, something that the European never heard before. So Marco Polo, the Polo is the family name. Marco Polo's family is the merchant family. Merchant is considered to be a new class in the Middle Ages society. They are not peasants, at the same time they are not nobles, but yet they made a lot of fortunes by selling goods. To earn their fortunes and the living, a merchant will travel to far away land to buy specifically goods that highly valued in the place where he came from or highly valued in the other places. The idea for the merchant to gain profit is to buy the goods at the lowest price as much as possible and then sell it in some other places. And of course, usually these places that willing to buy with the high price, that means that particular goods is very valuable. One of the example is the silk cloth itself. Silk cloth was only being made in China during those time, and then in Europe, because Europe do not know, because most of the European they do not know how to make the silk. Then the Europeans, they're willing to buy silk. They're willing to buy silk at a very high price because silk was very highly valuable items during those time. There's this kind of like supply and demand principle between China and the Europeans. Then the ancient people, they travel all the way to China throughout times. Then they develop this kind of like road network known as the Silk Route. Now, do not imagine like Silk Route is like a single highway or like a single Roman ancient way. It's not. It was a network. It was a series of a network of a small town that spread across between China and Europe. The road ends in Xi'an, the ancient capital city of China, and then to the west, the road ends somewhere in Constantinople. As the Constantinople itself, it's become like the travel hub between the east and the west, between Asian continent and the European continent. Think of it this way: Constantinople is a very strategic place, just right there in the middle of this Silk Route. Marco Polo's family, by the name of Polo, came from Venice. Most of the Venetians, they work as merchants. Yes, these people are become the agent that connects between the east and the west. They make profit by selling goods. Silk cloth is one of them. In fact, the city-states of Venice was nothing until the times of the Crusades. During the Crusades, apparently Venice was being picked as the main port, as the main harbor to go to the Holy Land. Okay, now this is how the story started. There were these two brothers by the name of Maffeo and Niccolo. These two brothers are merchants from Venice. They were a good merchant and then they travel extensively all the way to China. To be a good merchant, they have to travel sometimes to a very far away land to find like the cheapest good that they can find. Sell it somewhere else where that particular item is highly priced, is highly valued. Perhaps this Polo family, because they were being lured, because they were attracted by the promise of making profits out of like silk cloth, they travel all the way to China. There in China, they met the most powerful emperor in China during those times. In fact, arguably, He was like the most powerful emperor in Asia during this time. His name is Kublai Khan. Now Kublai Khan, he was like the descendants of Genghis Khan. We will talk about like Genghis Khan and the Mongolians in some other videos. But in the meanwhile, so Kublai Khan, he was the most powerful person. I'm pretty sure for Maffeo and Niccolo to meet Kublai Khan is equivalent like seeing a god, as they were probably dressed up in tattered clothes, and then in his court, in the court of Kublai Khan, both of them, they were being welcomed as if an honored guest. Now, Kublai Khan and also the Polo brothers, they become friends. Kublai Khan, he was curious with these Westerners because he never met any Westerners yet. For Maffeo and Niccolo, this is also out of the world kind of like experience for them. China was prosperous. The court that they were being hosted by Kublai Khan is the closest thing to heaven according to them. It was very grandeur and glorious. And then everybody's like dressed up nicely, everybody's like, smells good, and then the food is just like, abundantly and plentiful. And then somehow Kublai Khan, yes, even though his ancestor, which is like, Genghis Khan, known for his fierce, violent warrior that expand the empire of like that expand the Mongolian empire all the way to Europe later on. Kublai Khan, he turned out to be a very kind of like a cultured person. He was very curious about knowledge. So then he asked these two brothers, Maffeo and Niccolo, to return all the way to Venice, and brought with them the holy oil and also the priests. Apparently, Kublai Khan was very interested with the Christianity as the religion and would like to hear some more, with the promise that they would return to Kublai Khan with the priest and also the holy oil. Then Niccolo and Maffeo, they travel back home to Venice. Now, I forgot to tell you guys the details. Like this journey of these brothers it took them for many years. They have left their homeland Venice for quite some times by now. Niccolo had a son, someone by the name of Marco. Now, the last time Marco saw his son, Marco was still a baby. The son, Marco, is a big boy now. Marco is a 17 years old boy. Of course, now Marco was being invited by his father and also his uncle to travel back all the way to China. Of course, with the holy oil from Jerusalem. Yeah, I'm not really sure like why the holy oil is from Jerusalem. What did the Polo told Kublai Khan that makes Kublai Khan requesting for such an item, for such an unique item from Jerusalem and also the priest. Anyway, moving on. So now this time the Polo returned to China. Now not just two, but then again with three of them, Marco, Maffeo, and Niccolo. Journey went back to China is no joke. It's very, very long journey, and then this is like a very dangerous journey. There's a lot of bandits, and there's a lot of like different factions like fighting against each other. If you're traveling at the wrong time, at the wrong place, at the wrong kind of like event, you can be simply get killed. As they traveled, went back to China, it took them about 3 years of journey. If it's not because of the golden passport that Kublai Khan gave to the Polo brothers before, they were not going to survive this trip. Because why? They met a lot of like bandits who tried to kind of like kill them. Of course, the bandits are very dangerous for any kind of like travelers or merchants. The bandit just can simply kill you or enslave you, and after that, take all of your possessions and then, of course, sell it somewhere else. Now, if it's not because of that golden passport that Kublai Khan, they were not going to survive. Because why? This golden passport, it has a name of a Kublai Khan. It's made of a gold. Whenever the Polo have to travel from one city to another city, he just have to show off this kind of like, golden passport, and it has a Kublai's names in it. It gives a strong warning to everyone that these Polos, okay, these travelers, they are the honored guests of Kublai Khan. And did I say like Kublai Khan was the most powerful emperor in Asia during those times? Yes, they dare not to oppose Kublai Khan. Somewhere along the way though, the two priests that being brought by the Polos decided to return back to Europe. They do not have a stomach to continue the journey because of the dangers, because of like the perilous journey itself. And yeah, I did mention about the bandit, and I also have to mention that the dangers is also on the nature itself. One of the most notorious dangerous path that they have to walk through the Silk Route is the Gobi Desert. They say that the desert can turn you will faintly hear the desert is calling your name in a whisper. So I guess that's where you get the idea about Marco and Polo, because I can imagine the desert seems to whispering the name of Marco. Marco. Sometimes later, Polo. Marco. Polo. Maybe. Anyway, as they arrived in China, they were being welcomed by Kublai Khan. And here's the cool things. The Polos, they were welcomed by Kublai Khan, and then they were being asked to stay in China for 24 years. 24 years in China. They were helping Kublai Khan as a governor, as an ambassador. These three Venetians, these three Italian men, become like the ambassadors of Kublai Khan in China. I'm pretty sure that they will look very obvious. Throughout these 24 years, this Polo family, they dress up, they talk, they eat, they act, they think like a Chinese. They speak Chinese fluently to the point that they almost forgot their native language, the Italian. After 24 years living in China, one day the Polo realized that they have to leave China somehow. Because think it this way. Yes, so far life is so good. They were being treated nicely by Kublai Khan because Kublai Khan is their friend. But what if one day Kublai Khan died? Who can guarantee about their safety? Well, Kublai Khan also have the enemy within. Once that Kublai Khan's died, whoever that replacing Kublai Khan after that will treat every Kublai Khan's friend as the potential enemies. And because of that one, the Polo decided to return back home to Venice. But you cannot simply say to your friend Kublai Khan, the most powerful emperor in Asia at that time, like, hey, we would like to go home. Cannot, okay? Of course, Kublai Khan will not going to let you go just like that, because like, what are you doing? Why you want to go home? You are my friend. Stay here in my place forever. No, we need to go home because we are homesick. Okay, exactly. So the Polo make an excuses that they would like to go home because they miss home. They're missing home. They got homesick. Guess what? Kublai Khan did not let them go. Until one day, the Polo had a chance to return back to Venice. When was that? Okay, during this event. One day, Kublai Khan arranging a marriage between his daughter by the name of Kokachin. I'm not sure if I pronounce her names right though. Kokachin with the Prince of Persia. Yes, the Prince of Persia. Kublai Khan trusted the Polo so much, they asked Polo to escort this princess, of course being held by, with the servants and with the bodyguards. And so they left China, travel all the way to Persia, but this time not through the Silk Route, but then again through the sea. And so off the Polos goes after saying goodbye to Kublai Khan, together with the Princess Kokachin all the way to Persia. Now this time they did not travel through the Silk Route, but then again they traveled through the sea. It was a also equally dangerous trip. As they travel all the way to Persia, they visit a lot of places. Some of these places are Sumatra, Borneo, Malayan Peninsula, and also Sri Lanka. Yes, Marco Polo traveled all the way to what we know now in the modern countries as an Indonesia. Arrived in Persia, many of them died already. Okay, I forgot to mention the name of the number here. Like, they left with 100 contingents, they left with 100 men, and by the time like they arrived in Persia, there were only 18 men left. Many of them they died in the sea, many of them died because of the disease, and many of them they kind of like way too sick to continue the journey. It was a very dangerous journey. So 18 men left, including the Polos and the Princess Kokachin. And to make things kind of like a little bit awkward, okay, the groom that was being promised to be married with the Princess Kokachin died already. So Princess Kokachin will have to marry with someone else in Persia, also a prince though. So I guess it's apparently a happily ever after kind of like, you know, ending story for the princess. Yes, it is. Now what about the Polo? They have a chance now to return back to Venice. From Persia through the Black Sea, and then after that travel to Constantinople. As I said earlier, it was like the hub between the Asia and the Europe. It was an easy trip from Constantinople way back to Venice. Now, by this time, when they arrive in Venice, Marco Polo, he's no longer 70 years old boy, he is a 40 years old man now. That's how long he have been in China. By the time that they return home, nobody recognized them, as they are dressed up differently, they walk differently, they speak differently. They almost forgot how to speak Italian. So the local authorities seized them, thought that they are like strangers, and then they are spies, thought that they are strangers and spies, and then after that they were being all of their possessions, all of the expensive goods that they brought all the way from China, it was being confiscated. It took a while for the Polo to convince the authority that they are the Polo family. The Phoenician authority at the time, they thought that the Polo brothers and also Marco Polo died long time ago. They thought that these are the imposters of the Polo. Years later, Marco Polo was involved in a war. The war between the city-states of Venice, his hometown, with the neighboring city-states, a city-state by the name of Genoa. He was arrested, and after that he was being imprisoned by the Genoese. It was in the Genoese prison that Marco Polo met Rustichello. The person that I said earlier in the beginning of the video is the one who wrote the story about Marco Polo. After the Polo family pay a huge amount of like ransom for Marco to be released from the Genoese prison, now become almost bankrupt. Polo become almost bankrupt if only Rustichello did not help him with the books. Good things about the book is the book become like a very popular book during this time. The name of the book is The Journey of Marco Polo. It became like one of the best selling in that time for several hundred years. It inspired a lot of Europeans, it inspired a lot of travelers, it inspired a lot of like explorers, and one of them is Christopher Columbus from Genoa, which is later on he was the one who discovered accidentally American continent, which is he mistakenly thought that it was India. Throughout the time, some people believe that Marco Polo's story was amazing, but some other people believe that Marco Polo, he was a big liar because of the story that he tells about Asia, because the story that he tells about China, it seems to be unrealistic. It seems to be like a fantasy. The European never seen it before. Money made out of a paper, or food that looks like a worm and then you have to eat it with the two sticks. Anyway, Marco Polo, he died peacefully as an old man. Marco Polo did not really bother with those people who think that he's a liar. He lived peacefully, he got married, and then he have 3 daughters, and Marco Polo, he gave the golden passport that he got from Kublai Khan to one of his daughter as a gift. It was at the final moment when Marco Polo was laying on his deathbed, he receiving like the last rite from the local priest. And the local priest asked Marco Polo, is there any sin that you need to confess? Is there any lies that you would like to confess? What about your claim about the journey to China? And Marco Polo said, I have not told half what I saw, Marco Polo said. And then that's it. And then he died. Marco Polo died as the first European who traveled all the way to China, and then he wrote what he saw, he wrote what he listened, he wrote what he experienced in his memoir, in a book, not in a judgmental way, but as an observer, as a journalist, as a foreigner who saw all of these things, who saw all of the amazing things that he saw outside of Europe. Of course, his book changed the world. His book changed the way of the most of the Europeans' perspective during those time about the world that outside of the Europe. Until next time, I see you guys. Bye bye. God bless you guys all.